Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. We are live with Shane Helm today, and Shane has been in the design business for almost 20 years, been doing web, been very flexible, done motion graphics, worked for people that you definitely have heard of. But some things have led to even bigger, better projects, and he's going to let us kind of inside behind the curtain today and see where how he's been able to get to where he has. We have a bunch of questions, and I know we probably won't get through all of them because we have that many, and then we have some on the side as well. So I want to make sure, I know Kent wanted a couple questions he wanted to make sure that we got to from the ones that I had done. So I definitely want to get started. But give us a little bit of your background about when did you kind of fall in love with design, and then when did web design become a thing for you? And thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Diane. I appreciate it. And it was good to see you again at Creative South, and I get to see you every once in a while, and it's always a pleasure to see you. And this is wonderful. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. Okay.
Yes. Well, before I start, go back to the beginning. Can I tell you where I'm at right now? Okay. So yes. Currently, I'm Chief Creative Officer for Engage, which is a digital agency out of the Washington, D.C. area. And we're moved to new offices in Old Town, which is Alexandria, Virginia, about a year ago. So we work in politics, public policy, and we do some corporate work as well. So we do a lot of the committee sites, like Judicial Committee, Homeland Security, things like that for the House. And we did some Smithsonian work, also did the pitch for DC 2024, which was Washington, D.C.'s pitch to try to get to the Olympics in 2024. So we get to work on some fun stuff. And so to get to that stage, well, I'd like to start kind of story in 2013, which is when I sat with, and then go back to the beginning of how I got there, because I think it's important. It's important for anybody's career, just to really bust it to try to get to where you want to be in your dreams. So 2013, I'm working for Dave Ramsey. I've been there for 4 years. I could not wait. I waited for 2 years to go to work for Dave. And it was a point in my career where I just wanted to do something to help, to do something with my career to help a cause in a sense. But also before I worked for Dave, was doing some work in politics. So I knew I wanted to work in politics at some point. And I also had a real love for movies. So I grew up, my mother was a big movie fan. She had movies on all day, almost all the time, Turner Classic Movies or AMC or whatever, or the Perry Mason show was on, or we had Marx Brothers or Laurel and Hardy or whatever. So I had a love for movies. My name was going to be Quentin. And Mom saw Shane, thank goodness, the movie Shane, which is a Western, one of the best Westerns of all time, right before I was born, changed my name. So I'm even named after a movie. So I have this big movie love. I've seen nearly 2,600 movies. And then I also grew up in a real patriotic family that really believes in America, believes in our founding. My uncle died in Vietnam 3 years before I was born, which had a big effect on my family. And he was a Marine. And it wasn't that he was drafted. He grew up with polio, overcame polio as a child. It took him 3 times to get into the Marines. He wanted to serve our country. And once he got in, he died in 1969 in Vietnam. So I grew up with passion for movies and a passion for our country. And so in 2013, I've done work pro bono, which I'm going to get into what that work was. And I've done work, side projects. And they both led to 2 dream positions at the same time, one with Netflix and one with Engage. And I had to sit there with these 2 possible, careers ahead of me and had to make a choice. Right. But I want to get back to what got me to 2013, because it didn't just happen. It wasn't just, I put a couple of things on the internet and bam, I started web in 1997 was the first website I did. I graduated in 1996 with an art degree. But I grew up, my mother was an artist, watercolorist, and she had craft shows and did craft fairs, and she had a jigsaw in the garage and all these different saws. And when I was a kid, she would have me, paint the base colors on lamps that she was making or whatever the latest craft was. And she was making corn husk dolls or whatever. So I grew up with that. Her father was a sign painter. And so that was a lot of my life was around art. Now, my father was a nuclear reactor engineer. And I think that engineering side of my brain mixed with the art side of my brain is why I've wound up on the web doing user interface design. I think it just comes together and makes sense. Math was my best subject. And so I grew up winning poster contests and all that. And in between sixth and ninth grade, I aced all my art classes. In 10th grade, there was this class called graphic design. I had no idea what that meant, but I took it. I was burnt out at that point on art, and I made a D. So I made a D in graphic design in 10th grade, and so I quit. I kind of quit. I dropped the class after the first 9 weeks, went and took study hall, and kind of gave up art for a while. And then until my senior year, I drew a T-shirt for a bunch of guys that we just hung out together. It was kind of like our mini, not a gang, but just, a group of guys. And everybody at school loved it. They wanted me to do the shirt for the school, the whole high school class, which I didn't do. But I was always this competition with me and this other artist in school. I mean, it so much that we were supposed to have a fight in like 10th grade on the.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm so big and deep, but I was really small then. I didn't have my height then, but so it was stupid. But he was really incredible artist, and really he was better than I was. But but he had done the senior high school shirt, and the other students wanted me to do it, so it was just ridiculous. So, but I got into college. I started it with a business degree, which. When I got to quantitative business analysis was just
right. Yeah.
I don't know what that was, but anyway, so I dropped out of that and said, what can I do? And I had recently been drawing on jeans and painting jeans, and I'd done a pair of jeans of mine, and people liked them and started paying me $50 to draw on their jeans.
Which was a good bit of money.
Yeah, well, yeah. I was
when you're in high school or right in college, right?
Yeah. So I was doing jeans, and so I got the art itch again, and so I changed my major to art, and then after starting to take typography, of course, this was not on the computer. This was like sign painting typography and color theory, and I was excelling in these things, and I was really enjoying it. And so then I transferred to Harding University, which is a school in Searcy, Arkansas. It's about 5,000, well, it's 4,000 students at the time. And I was going to take graphic design. So I was in graphic design class again. And I didn't grow up in a family that had a computer. And so we get to class, and the teacher's like, okay, students, let's take out this tutorial book and let's do a tutorial on Illustrator. Well, this is the time Illustrator is like, I don't know what version it was. I think I started in Photoshop 3 or 4. But while other students were sitting there doing their tutorial, I was sitting there trying to figure out how to even open the program and save a file. So anyway,
I mean, we were very similar. We didn't have anything like that. But I mean, yeah.
So anyway, I dropped out of graphic design.
Again.
Yes. Got an art degree. And when I'm getting close to graduation in December of '96, I'm like, I'm not going to make a living as a painter. I'm not that good, and it's very hard to do. So what am I going to do? Well, that summer before my last semester, my dad bought me a computer. I had done a T-shirt design for the drama group. I was in a Christian drama group. Believe it or not, I was the comic relief. I did all these different characters and everything. So I'm a different person, not so reserved when I'm on stage. And So I traveled the country with the drama group. I did a T-shirt. People at youth rallies and everything. Can we buy your shirt? Can we buy your shirt? I was like, you wanna buy this shirt, really? And what I had done is I'd gone into the computer lab one night and just tried to figure it out, and figured out how to open Photoshop, did a little design and printed it out, and then had it printed. So I was after I did that, I decided to get a computer. And my dad, actually, he owned rent houses. And one night he called me and said, "You have to turn on the TV." So I turned on the TV, and one of his rent houses is up in flames. He's like, "They blew up the house." I'm like, "What are you talking about? They blew up the house?" He's like, "The tenants, they blew up the house. I don't know if there's a drug, something going on there or what." So that a lot of that money that he collected from the insurance company went to buy me a new computer, a printer, and I started a T-shirt business, a Christian T-shirt business. So I put all these designs together and went to a youth rally, the first youth rally I went to, and just about sold out of T-shirts, made $300,000 that weekend.
300,000?
No, I'm sorry. Wow, that'd be awesome. I'm retired already.
I know. Holy moly. I think you left that out when we were talking before.
3,000. Just 3,000.
That's still a lot of money.
I'm trying to talk too fast because this story is going long.
Anyway, I like that you made $300,000 out of you.
$300,000,
And those Christians are all about buying T-shirts. Anyway,
so I made 3,000. Then I went so we thought this was going to be great. So I did a T-shirt business for a while, and then, but when I met who is my wife now, and we were about to get married, she said, we cannot live off a T-shirt company, so you really need to get a real job. And luckily, the drama group I was in wanted me to be director the following year, so I had to stick around at school an extra year. And in order to do that,
she was a year younger than you.
Yeah,
right?
No, she's 5 years younger than me. So,
okay, so lots of years younger than you.
So she was a sophomore when we started dating. And so that year I had to take at least an hour credit. So I took an independent study, and they gave me, "Can you do us a website for the Department of Communication?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I called my dad. "Dad, I need this software called NetObjects Fusion. Can you get that for me?" He's like, "Sure." So he got me NetObjects Fusion, which in the early days was Dreamweaver, and I started teaching myself web design. And so I did my first website, and I guess that was in '97. And then, so when my soon-to-be wife said, "You got to get a real job," I started looking for jobs, and I actually found a job in the newspaper, because that's how we look for jobs 20 years ago. So I found a job in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and went to work as a web designer in 1997. But I only did that for 5 months. And then I have a minor in radio television, and a friend of mine who we did work together in school, video production work. I would do graphics, he would animate them in After Effects. And we won a national student, first runner-up. We got a student NAB award, National Association of Broadcasters award for that. And so we had, working together, we did a lot of cool things with animation and motion graphics and things like that.
At the time, this was really new. You were probably using Macromedia Director. It looks like you're drinking moonshine, just so you know.
This is, out of a mason jar.
That's how moonshine comes.
I usually have an Old South one of these, Mike Jones's little side project.
Anyway, so the web was a lot different back then, and so was motion graphics. But okay, so just to kind of give people back, because this is almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I was doing I learned After Effects when I went to this new job. So I was in 5 months, I was in web design, and then
Tell them how you got that job.
Okay, so a friend of mine who we went to school together, he was selling Avid machines, which Avid was before Final Cut Pro took a lot of that market share. They were the big. And I mean, the machines cost $120,000, $300,000.
You could have just gone to a youth rally.
That's right. So he was selling these machines to a production house in Little Rock, Arkansas, who did JM Associates, who did all the outdoor programming for ESPN. He's like, they're hiring a designer. I'm like, oh. He's like, you should apply. And I'm like, no, we should apply together. Let's both do this. And so we spent a weekend busting it, and we filmed some footage. We put some motion graphics together, and we busted it all night, put together a production, and sent this in to show them. And they said, ooh, we like this. And they hired both of us after we interviewed, but they hired both of us. So I went to work for 2 years, from 1998 to till 2000. Worked doing the motion graphics for like the hunting, fishing, lumberjack competition, steel timber sports, and things that was on early in the morning on ESPN. I think they're on Fox Sports now. I think they switched at some point, but anyway. So then, but after 2 years of that, and some days where it'd be 16 hours days, because After Effects at that time, you would hit render and you would sit under your desk and go to sleep for a couple of hours for a 15-second blip of graphics, and you would wake up and you'd look at it and you'd say, oops, there's a mistake. Let me start over. And but sometimes it'd be 16-hour days. And there was a stretch there when I went 5 days without hardly any sleep and wound up in the hospital with sleep deprivation. And they sent me home with some sleeping pills and told my wife every time he wakes up, give him one of these, make sure he sleeps for 48 hours. And wow. So I woke up 48 hours later, went in and said, I'm done with television. And so I went, Flash was out at the time. I had been using Macromedia, Shockwave Director, and doing motion graphics like that. And so I got in. We wanted to live in the mountains, and so we wound up going to Utah, contacted a place in Park City, Utah, and said, are you guys hiring? They said, no. I said, okay, can I send you my portfolio? Sure. So
is this like in the late 90s, 99?
This is 2000.
2000?
Yeah,
okay.
I think I moved out there in 2001.
And businesses, it was different a little bit then. We didn't have, the internet was around, but it wasn't like it is now. So getting a job, but I still think some of the things that you did, specializing, making a specialized demo reel for the people in Arkansas got you an in there. And then the people in Park City, you say, hey, are you hiring? But then you showed them what you could do, right?
Correct. So, I mean, if there's something you want to go after, I mean, you need to just do everything you can to impress. If that's the job you want and that's what you want to be doing, or that's where you want to live, or you just bust it to get there. But I mean, not everything works out. First, I wanted to go, we tried Loveless, Colorado, and I made a little animation and sent it to them, and that didn't work out. Or Loveland, Colorado, is that what it is?
Loveland.
And so, yeah. So I did that before Park City, Utah. We're like, Colorado's not working out. So, and I was on the web one night, and there was this little ad. It said High Country Internet, Park City, Utah. And so I clicked on it and contacted them, and they brought me out. After I showed them some work, they brought me out. I spent a day with them and went to lunch, talked, and showed them my portfolio, and did an animation while I was there in Director. Because at that time, we were making all these compact discs, and they were all these weird shapes. And you would put, as long as the tray slid out of your computer, you could stick it in there.
Right.
You didn't dare stick one of those star-shaped discs into a front-loading slot.
No.
But so I did that, and they were impressed and said, you're hired. And so I went back and said, Ashley, we're loading up a U-Haul. We're going to Utah. U-Haul to Utah. So that's what we did. And when I got out there, there was another guy working there, and he was doing these thing called Flash intros.
Yeah. For websites, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, I got to learn this Flash intro thing. And so my boss is like, we have this lead for luxury motors in Chicago, so we have to have a flash intro by Monday. Can you do this? I'm like, yeah, I got this. It was Friday. I went and bought a visual quick start guide. Do they still make those books?
Yep. Lynda.com owns that.
Oh, really? Okay, that makes sense. So I bought one on Flash, went home on the weekend, didn't sleep much, came back on Monday, was so tired. I walked in my laptop and I went to show my boss, and I tripped and dropped the laptop. It busted. The screen cracked.
Oh.
Luckily, I could still hook it to a monitor and get the file, and so we were good. And so I learned Flash in the weekend, and of course I'd already had a little bit, I had experience animating in After Effects, which at that time After Effects was so visionary, and Flash was not, and going from animation it was so much easier in After Effects to go to Flash. Flash was all these extra steps, and it was just mind-boggling. But anyway, that's a whole different story. Are we done with question one?
But anyway, so then Utah, and you said something changed in your life that you said, hey, I want to do something and give back. And that's when you were like, hey, this Dave Ramsey guy, and you started doing some freelance stuff. So take us from that freelance bit of what you started doing politically, and then take us to Dave Ramsey.
Okay, so the rest of the story. Okay, so all right, that's why I was afraid I was going too long, but yeah, you're right. I got to get there. So anyway, so I was working for
because that's really important. Because that's something that's a applicable thing that somebody else can take and say, hey, look what he did. Okay, this is all one thing you should learn already from what Shane said, is that he always was learning new things. This is constant. This isn't like, oh, it's going to stop one day. It's like always going to be like this. He always was trying. He saw something cool, and then he was trying to figure it out. And so we have to be like that to keep up in our industry. And then also, I think one of the things I learned from what you said already is that you go for something, and maybe it's not the right fit, but don't let that stop you from going for the next thing, because it might be the right fit then. Okay, back to you.
So I'm in Park City, Utah, doing these, Flash intros and web designs and things like that. But at this point,
in a beautiful house, you had a beautiful, tell about your little bit about your.
Okay, well, at that point, we lived in a condo.
Yes. Okay, not the condo.
Yeah, well, and my wife wanted to buy another condo right next to ours for $170,000, 3-bedroom, when we needed a little more space, and we decided we want to have kids. And I'm like, $170,000, we can't afford this, which we really couldn't. I wasn't making a lot of money. And, but 2 years later, those condos were worth $320,000. Surely there was some way to make it work, right? So, right. And who knows what they're worth.
Go to a youth rally.
Go to a youth rally, 300,000. Yeah. T-shirts.
Yeah. Anyway, back to you. Okay. So Park City, Utah.
So so we were doing a lot of business for real estate companies. I was doing a lot of real estate, and I was doing a lot of property management companies, because we were booking ski lodging for property management companies, and they were making bukus of money. And my boss was like, "What are we doing? Let's build our own search websites." Book the properties for the companies, and then so he went and made all these deals, and not just Park City, but Breckenridge, Aspen, everywhere, Vail, and so 10 to 20% of the booking fees or whatever. So we started building all these search sites, and then we cloned all these sites, and we were spamming Google, and we would be, you search Breckenridge ski lodging, and we were 4 or 5 of the top 10 results, because we had a really great SEO guy at the time, and we were doing all the things at that time you weren't supposed to do. So, which, when they started making rules and cracking down on that type of stuff, hidden links, or just, footers with this many keywords.
Right.
But the company, we were getting toward, we went from like 8 or 10 guys as a web design company. And then all of a sudden we had 40 telemarketers booking properties, and then summer was coming, and I'm like, to my boss, John, man, we gotta get prepared for summer travel. Started building summer sites, but we just didn't get it done in time. And so layoffs started coming. We lay off all the telemarketers, and then John comes to me and says, I can try to keep you through the summer and hire you back at the end of summer, or you can go now and I can give you severance. Then you can try to come back at the end of summer. I want to keep you, but it's just down to So anyway, so he said, you can take the web design company over and all the clientele over, just sign over, you can take that, your severance pay, and go do that for a while. Just sign over the 1% of the company of the ski travel company, and then you can take all these clients and everything. So I did that. 3 years later, he sells the company for $25 million, which would have been $250,000, which would have paid off, a house or whatever. So that would have been, it was not astronomical money.
It's not as good as the youth rally.
No, not as good as the youth rally. True. I could do that in a weekend, but so anyway, so I'm out on my own. And so I'm out on my own, and I don't have developers now. Right. And, well, me and another guy worked together for a little while, but then we split ways. And so it was just me. And I was like, and we had bought a house, a beautiful house that's on South Mountain in Draper, Utah, that overlooked the valley. And there's just out the back window of our house, this picturesque mountain. You just have mountain peaks jutted up and snow, and it's just beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And so we're living in this house, got a big mortgage. I'm running my own business. And I'm like, who's going to code these sites? Because at this time, there's not chop shops that you can send your sites to have them sliced for you and all that. So, and I was already frustrated with handing off my designs to development team and them not coming out the way I envisioned it. But I didn't know how to talk that through and say, hey, so because previously I'd been using NetObjects Fusion, so and tables. So this new thing was out called CSS, and there was these books by Eric Mayer and Jeffrey Zeldman, and Dave Shea had the Zen Garden, CSS Zen Garden, and all this stuff was going on. I was like, awesome. It was a perfect time for me to learn code. And so I just started immersing myself in what I could learn online, and started teaching myself CSS and XHTML, and started coding the sites from start to scratch. But but owning my own business and stuff, it was really tough at that time. You sat in a room, there weren't things like communities like Dribble or anything like that. You thought, you're like, there's other designers out there, but I don't know them. Where are they? How to communicate? Right. So anyway, but so after a while, it was just hard to be making this big house payment and all that. I was like, man, we're in so much debt. There was times where we just credit card all the time, getting food, eating out and everything. I was like, this is not right. So I read Dave Ramsey's Home Makeover, really got into that and started changing the way we view debt, and we're like, we're going to sell this house. We're going to get a small house in the middle of town, in a rundown part of town, which we moved to Midvale, Utah. Yes, go ahead.
You sound... If Jason hadn't said anything...
What did he say?
You were talking... It sounded like you were an alien, and I was trying to keep a straight face. I was just hoping it would stop. Anyway, and then Jason said, "What was that?"
So I want to reveal it.
Anyway,
I really came on today to reveal I'm an alien.
You'll have to go back to that in a second. I think you could go until I turn red, really, if Jason hadn't said, I was like, can everybody else hear that? Or is it just me? And Alma had just said her connection was spotty. And so I was like, oh no, and then it was like, and it was really, I would have been able to be fine. So, okay, back to your story. I'm so sorry.
Anyway, we're in major debt. I'm looking at this. I got hired as as soon as we sell the house, and I think God was like, you're going to sell this house and then I'm going to bless you. Because once I sold the house and cut up the credit cards and put my faith in him and not on a piece of plastic, things started taking off. And sold that house. And before we even moved out, I got a new job making great money as a creative, first time as a creative director. I'm, halfway into my career. Well, maybe not. Yeah, third way into my career at this point. And so I'm like, now I'm making money. We could have kept this house, but I don't think that's what God wanted. So we moved. We stayed with the plan, and we moved to 4 years in a house that 3 times while we were there was people held up in front of our house by gunpoint 3 different times. So, and one time was some guy had robbed the bank, and my wife called me at work and said, their police are out here holding a guy by gun, and they've got his car pulled over here in the front yard. And I'm sitting outside with the baby, which was Molly, our second child at the time. I was like, do I need to come home? No, don't come home. They'll take care of it. But I had just jumped to start that car a week earlier. It was a neighbor just right around the street corner. And I jump started his car because the car wouldn't work. So I jump started the getaway car. So there's a lot of confessions today, other than being an alien.
Right. So you work for Dave Ramsey, and then how do you get to where you are now?
Yes. So I really wanted.
Because that was what year? What year did you start working for Dave?
2009. I moved to Tennessee. So I was working for an ad agency at the time, and I felt like I just didn't feel like it was a good call. I mean, I was working in education and stuff like that, but I just wanted to work for something I believed in. At the same time, right before I took the Dave Ramsey job, it was 2008, and I'd read Ron Paul, The Revolution, and was really kind of mind-opening, and started leaning more libertarian and, to our founding and stuff like that. So I reached out to, this was right before I took the Dave Ramsey job. I reached out to Ron Paul. Had just started Campaign for Liberty, and his congressional intern had graduated and was starting Young Americans for Liberty. And I reached out to both of them, and I sent them a link to my website, and I said, I want to help. And you don't have to pay me anything. Because I knew at that time I knew they didn't have any, a lot of money to start these things. And so I think pro bono work and offering your services for free to a cause that you believe in can lead you to a dream position, because that work led to a Senate campaign in Arizona, to Senate Conservatives Fund work, and that work was finally seen on Dribble by Engage, which is why I am where I am now. This all goes back to 2008 when I did that pro bono work. So if there's a cause you believe in, I really, I encourage you to reach out. You never know what's going to come out, with.
Or a group or something that needs help. And sometimes those even become, and I think yours did this too. They might not have paid you in the beginning, but then it ended up becoming a paid gig. And you're working full time with Dave Ramsey and doing this on the side. And this was one thing. So if you aren't familiar, Dave Ramsey has a big thing about getting out of debt, and he says attack the debt. And so side jobs, you're doing these things to pay off debt. And so, I asked you the other day, I was like, well, how was he, kind of about that? And you said he was fine. If you were working your regular job and you were doing fine at it, then he didn't care as much, right? He wanted you to.
As long as you're not doing it on his time and in his hours. And I'm working a 40-hour week for him. I go home, or I'd work at a lunch. I went to this little sub shop called Lenny's Sub Shop, and I would sometimes work, at Lenny's. I'd eat there 3 or 4 times a week sometimes. And they knew me by name. Hey, Shane, here's your sandwich. So, yeah. And then at night after the kids went to bed, kids go to bed at 8:30, and then I'd hit it. And then I was doing political design, and then came the opportunity. A friend of mine who I had worked with in Utah, John Perkins, and a friend of his, Ton, developer friend, and me, we started this website called Seen That. So it was a side project related on movies, so that you could recommend movies to friends. You could log the movies that, all the movies you've seen, that you own, and all those types of things, and share it on social, stuff like that.
That's how you've seen so many
I've logged the movies, yes. So I'm almost at 2,600 movies. Hold on, moonshine break.
Right. I won't let me use the interior dribble, so I'm just going to put those links. The links That's for fine. What he's talking about are over there, so I just can, I don't know. Anyway, so you get on Dribble about when? Like, when were you working? What year? Because Dribble was help for you, right?
Dribble was huge for me. So a friend of mine at Dave Ramsey, Ben Lalazan, invited me in 2011, which is when I joined. And right after that's when I started doing Seen That. So I was sharing a lot of my work for Seen That on Dribble, which is where I started getting a following through that. So in Seen That we had $120,000 investment. We were written in Mashable. We weren't making any money off of it, but because of the love for movies and just the prospect of this becoming something, people asked me after I quit it early 2013 if all that time was worth it, and of course it was worth it. I mean, yes, we didn't get some big investment, and we didn't make it. We did get. I mean, I think it's still up. There's like 20,000 users, and but yeah, I mean, Google called me, Netflix called me, CBS Interactive, Samsung, all these companies were calling me because they saw the work and they wanted to know what I could do for them. And that's in that pro bono work in politics to help, which turned into a paying gig, which turned into 2013. And I'm sitting an offer from Engage, is what I do now. And then the side project of Seen That led to Netflix calling me. And I had my two dream jobs at the same time, and I had to make a decision between the two, which was very nerve-wracking and hard to make. But in the end, I'm happy with the decision I made. I made a right decision, and I love what I do. I love what Engage does, and we're working on some big things, and it's exciting. So it's just bust it.
I think you said the other day you were watching something and you were like, I made that logo and it was on TV. Right.
So I did the House Republicans logo. And so the other day, this whole thing against Trump versus Paul Ryan, and they had a split screen on TV, and I'm looking at, we're watching, my wife and I are watching, and behind Paul Ryan's the House Republicans logo. And I was like, actually, I did that logo. She's like, really? Of course, it's come full circle because early in my career, I'm watching my graphics on ESPN, so it's fun. It's fun seeing your things out in the wild,
Yeah, it is.
It's humbling. And you sometimes forget, you see it on your screen, but you don't always see it out being used. Yeah, living. And when you do, it's rewarding. It's fun.
So I want to get to some of these other questions because I think we've kind of wrapped up where you are. So CCO is what? Chief Creative Officer, right? So one of the things that you get to do, which is really cool, is that you have these two amazing dream jobs at the same time offering you positions. And so it gave you some bargaining chips, I guess. So one of the things you got to do with working, this is way down our thing, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it now since that's kind of where we are, is about working remotely. So they were super excited about having remote workers, but because of the situation, you were able to do it. And why do you make a great remote worker? Because I think some people like me, I need some more interaction. Of course, you have 6 ladies in your house, so that's interaction maybe. But what about you makes you a good remote worker, and how did you convince them to let you do this?
Well, first, let me clarify 6 ladies in the house. So those are a wife and 5 daughters.
Right. Sorry.
Winning.
Right. Sorry about
anyway, that. No, that's fine. So anyway, yes. I don't know. Are you familiar with Strength Finder 2.0?
Strength, yes. It's a book.
Okay. Yes, it's a book, and it's an online test. It kind of gives you a personality. It gives you your 5 strengths. And so if you've not done that, I encourage you to do Strength Finder 2.0. Also take the DISC profile, DISC profile. Look into that as well. That's something that Dave Ramsey really encourages all his team workers to do. And so you kind of get a feel for what everybody's personality is. So in Strength Finder 2.0, I was, Jason says it's procrastination is strength. One of mine was not procrastination, even though that is a struggle for us all. Was responsibility. So I'm very responsible. So I don't like to displease people. I don't like to go to bed at night with things left undone. And when I do, it really grates on me, and it makes me have trouble sleeping. So I have to finish what I have to work on and stuff like that. And being a freelancer for years, running my own business at one point, having an employee at one point, working late at night, my family was already used to me working and knowing, when to, they call me Poppy. When Poppy's working, let's respect his time. So there was already that. And I was already, used to working with clients and everything. So, and I had worked with Engage for 3 months prior to them making the full-time position. So, sometimes I think it's good for companies and, designers to, sometimes have that kind of get your feet wet period and see how it's going to work out before you make a huge step and decision. So they already knew that I delivered, when a project needed to be done, I delivered on time and things like that. So anyway, I could go to Netflix, I could come here and I just, I said, I want to work from home and I want to work remote. And that's what my dream, that's something we had prayed for years. My wife homeschools, and my wife was born in the wrong century. Should have been born in the 1800s just because she's so anti-electronics. She's so, she's not, she's beautiful. She's gorgeous. And if you saw her, you'd be like, how did that happen? But anyway, because of, I lost my train of thought.
She's not really technology. So she should have been born in the
Yeah, so we look back and, that's how family used to be. It used to be together all the time on the farm or whatever. So let's get some chickens and make this happen. And so I want to design from home, and that was a possibility. And I'd already proven myself, so Engage knew that they could trust me. And then a year later, I hired Ron Slater, who is an awesome designer, and we just have an awesome team, and we have some great developers. And we're about a team of 20, 25 people at Engage, and we bust it, and we're agile, and we can get things done. We're flexible, and we do a lot of work for such a small team, and it's a blessing in my life, and I love it.
So, all right. So that was one of my questions. So why is being flexible and having it, this is one that Kent wanted to also hear. So why is being flexible and having a teachable spirit great qualities for a designer? And then what other personal attributes do you think are important for designers to have today? And then I have another addition to that question when you finish that.
I'm sorry. So what is it? So why is being flexible important?
And being teachable, because teachable. Why have those helped you?
When your boss comes to you and says, we need a flash intro and you don't know how to do it, you need to learn to do it. When it comes down to, I could be a better UI designer if I knew the code behind what's possible, what's not possible. Of course, so much is more possible today. If you've only been working on the web in the last 5 years, you were so blessed because, 20 years ago, we had 3 or 4 fonts to choose from, and we wanted an image on the website, but it usually had to be small because download time was forever.
Right.
and I just remember for years wanting this to do great typography on the web, or I wanted a image to fill the screen and be able to, you know, change with the screen size and stuff. And then technology changes so fast, and to be able to keep up in this industry, you have to keep on it. I mean, we never knew we were going to have to make websites work on a phone. So, I mean, it's interesting to watch how this has all evolved over the years, and to see, and to see the guys that come up with this code and everything to be like, oh, well, now there's responsive design, and we're going to make this fit for any screen. So it's just, you got to stay on the edge, and which is not always easy. I mean, because it changes so fast, and sometimes you wonder if the young designers are gonna, you know, move past you. But
right,
and then so that's a real world threat. So you got to stay cutting edge, I guess, on the edge of technology.
So another way for I think people who have been in the business a while, I think of Joe Bosack as well. You don't look at his work and be like, oh yeah, it looks kind of old, like kind of dated. Like, that's another way to stay flexible, is because our industry is so trend. We have to stay up with trends, colors. We have to do what is current. So how, you know, what's helped you stay so that nobody looks at your stuff, because your stuff's awesome. Nobody looks at it and is like, oh, he's kind of dated. Like, how do you stay up on things?
Thank you.
You have 5 daughters?
Yeah, they tell me what's in. Actually, my oldest, she's 12. She's a face painter, and I think she's going to surpass all of us. And because I'm a 3rd generation artist, she's 4th, and I think she's going to be better than us all. So, but anyway, no, I mean, it's good it's good to make, you know, other contacts with other designers that will keep you honest, and to show them your work and say, hey, how can I prove this? But also, I'm on the web all the time, so I'm seeing what's happening, and I like things. And
you're not staying in a vacuum. You're continuing to look at other things and to research. It's not like, hey, I've got this, I'm going to do it this way. That you're always constantly checking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as slow as the internet is out in the sticks and the rolling hills of Tennessee, you know, I'm on it, you know, most hours of the day until I'm off with my kids. But, you know, so, and Dribbble has been a very big, you know, big thing for my career, because I've gotten to know through conferences, through Dribbble, through Creative South, and I've gotten to know a lot of our other designers, and kind of keep up with their work, and kind of, you know, share work together and see how we can make it better. But I don't know. I don't feel like, it's good to hear that my work's not dated, because, you know, I don't know, but I think it's natural. You're just seeing how the web evolves. I saw a tweet. You
also like to do different things and push yourself. I think that's another one of your superpowers, is that you're like, hey, I want to figure out how that was done. Right?
You what? My superpowers? I was responding to.
I know, it's okay. But that's one of your superpowers, I said, is because you're always looking at something and then trying to figure out how it was done. Right? Mm-hmm. Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know how things are evolving, how things are done, and things like that. But I'm also like, now that there's so many options for fonts and stuff, I start a new project, I'm like, you know, what font combinations can I do here? You know, because that's going to be new and different. And, you know, what module shape should I square these buttons off, or should I round them? What's kind of on trend? You know, I bucked the flat trend in the beginning a lot, not because I didn't feel like it was a design trend so much. When iOS moved to flat design, I don't know that I didn't agree at that time, because I saw flat design as a solution to a problem where we needed to take graphics from one size display and make them flexible for smaller displays.
Right.
And I thought skeuomorphic design still made sense as an OS because it wasn't to solve a solution. Solve a problem of that we had on the web. So I didn't see why it was so much needed on a device, unless it was you're viewing a website or something of that nature. Now I'm happy that these two are kind of coming in and becoming, I guess, married together. So I'm liking where things are now. But in the beginning, I was having a hard time with it. I mean, I wasn't on the web; it made sense, but I just didn't feel like it made sense for an OS. I felt skeuomorphic still made sense. That your typewriter looked like a typewriter or keyboard.
Okay, so are there any other personal attributes that you've seen that you've had to get across to an employer? And then how were you able to show it before you were their employee? And I also think that it's good to say, hey, you're, chief creative officer, but they still had to do 3 months of, hey, let's try this out. It's not like I think some people are like, oh, well, that happens only in the beginning of your career. But I really think that, sometimes it's all the way through your career.
Right. Well, I wasn't hired as chief creative officer at Engage. I was hired as design director. So that was a year ago is when I became chief creative officer. So, but I'm horrible in job interviews. I'm terrible because I'm so reserved and because I don't like talking about myself because I don't like arrogant people. So I don't like to say, hey, here's what I did. I did this for, I've done a lot of that today, which is very unusual and hard for me to do. My friend Nick Sloggett and you, Diane, both said you need to talk more about what you do. Because
I think it's really important for other people who are like that. So David O'Hara, when I was talking to and I told you this story, I'm pretty sure. I'm like picking at something that's making a bunch of eraser dust. But he was like telling what he had done with like 50 States Apparel because he does a side project. And I was talking to one of my students and she had this painting like right here and you could kind of see it, but you couldn't really see it. And I was like, oh, Carrie, you should, show everybody your painting. And she's like, no. And then we went on. And then the next day at school, I said, well, did you think when David O'Hara was talking about his, what he does and then what he does for his side project and how he talked about 50 states, did you think that was really, self like me. And she's like, no, I thought that was cool. I said, that's what people would have thought about your painting. And that's what I was telling you, because I think it's hard sometimes, I think, to talk about those things, but there is so much good that you're not sharing because you're not sharing some of that with everybody else. And I'm with Nick on this. I really think that you have to, you do have to be able to talk about your work in a way that's not cocky, like, hey, look at me. But more like, hey, this is what I've done. This is what I've learned. And that's why I was like, Shane, you've got to talk about this because your work is amazing. But then you have this amazing story. And it's not like you were just like, bong, all this great stuff started happening. You are working hard. And
yeah, there was a time I was working 3 jobs at a time because I believed in the Dave Ramsey message. At one point I was making, I don't want to tell you what I was making, but I was making really good money at this one job in Utah. And because I wanted it so bad, I was doing that, freelancing, and delivering pizzas because I wanted out of debt. It was that important.
So like Fabio, right? I'm having trouble with names today. I'm so sorry.
Fabio.
So Fabio, are you saying you have a hard time talking about your work too? I know. Peter's like, I'm going to spell it out.
Fabio does awesome work.
No, but that's just it. Like, does anybody think that Shane's been like, oh, like with Shane, no, I feel like we're just listening to your story. And I think you just have to know when to answer the call and say, hey, yeah, let me tell you about this thing I did. And it's not like, oh, listen, everybody stop what you're doing, listen to me. You know, like I just think it's important that you learn that skill.
Yeah.
And it's good that you have people like Nick and me that are bugging you to share your story.
Yeah, it definitely helps to be asked to tell your story and answer questions than you sound like. But going back, so I'm horrible in a job interview because I don't like talking about myself. So I've been passed on several jobs awesome jobs because I just didn't talk about myself. But with Engage, I had proven myself again for 3 months, and but I don't think I remember having a phone call with the owner, Patrick, and with my buddy there, Eric, who's the chief operating officer, and it was just a good conversation. So I think I did okay there, but there's been some times where it's just been bad. It's been bad.
I don't think I interview well either, but I think that we need to say about ourselves, because I do think what we say is what we hear ourselves. And so if you keep saying that, then you will live that out. Like you will be, you are an incredible person, incredible designer, and you're super passionate when you work for whoever you're working for. If it's freelance, if it's delivering pizzas, if it's working at a company, I feel like you're there. And I think sometimes that's a hard thing to get across in an interview. Do you think that that's hard to get across? Like that you're a team player or that you're responsible? Because you can say that, but then people are like, right.
No, you have to give examples of in the past, what you've done in the past, how you're a team player at X job before and how you're a team player X. I mean, everybody can sit there and go, I'm a detailed oriented person. I work well with a team, but you got to tell the story and why you,
You're not sounding like a robot now though, thankfully. So Peter says it's never bragging. It's just justifying your expertise and opinion when working with clients and talking to a crowd about who you are. But I think sometimes it's like Shane would rather talk about somebody else than talk about himself. But sometimes it's like somebody's missing out from the story that you're supposed to teach them, I think.
Yeah, and that too, I don't want to leave out the team. We're doing some big things. So we're doing, we've worked on the re-election campaign for the Prime Minister of Australia, and that takes more than me. It takes a team, and it takes some really good developers, and it takes a really good project manager, Ryan Frazee. It takes Ben Locker, and it takes Mike Calvo and Lee Moran and Spence and Ryan Slater and Eric Rappridge. It takes all these guys to really make it happen. And it takes our client strategy team, Maggie and Matt and all these guys to talk to the clients and make sure, everything lines up. So, and bring us back to work. So, it's a team effort.
It is. Joseph has a good point. He says, as designers, especially, we are so used to communicating other people's voices that we sometimes forget the strength of our own. Mm-hmm. And I think that's absolutely correct. I think that is beautiful. You should tweet that out because that's such a good line, Joseph. But I think, so one of the things that you've had to do, and I know we're out of time almost, you've had to communicate with developers because it is this team. So how has knowing code helped you with your job, and what are your secrets to good communication with the developers?
Well, we're on Slack all day together. So, it's easy to communicate, through the online tools like that. But it's also important to know, how to talk to a developer. So when I come in with a Photoshop file and Mike chops it up and he comes back to me, or Lee chops it up and comes back to me, and they say, and this text is really too close together. And if I say, hey guys, the leading is just wrong, it needs to be more spread out, that's not going to mean anything to them. I've got to be like, guys, I want the line dash height, colon at 32 pixels. I got it. Okay, let's write that in and write that in. So
you're the robot again.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad, and at least I knew other people were hearing it, and it wasn't just me this time. So, say something.
Do I need to re-say all that?
No, I think just say it again. So Sorry.
Ryan said, Chewy says robots shouldn't drink moonshine.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, notice how he turned into a robot when he was giving orders. Okay. Okay, so talking to developers, line height. We heard everything up until about line height. They knew didn't understand letting.
So if it comes back and it doesn't look like the Photoshop file, this block of text, I can't say, hey guys, the letting's wrong, because they don't understand what that means. Some do, but I mean, not every developer I've worked with. So if it comes back, I say, hey guys, the line height is wrong. The line height needs to be, and then I'll just write that code snippet, 32 pixel, and plug that in, and we're good to go. So, I mean, it's, the H1 needs to be this, and we need, they're always asking what's the hex code for this, for this secondary color here on your H2. So, I mean, if you don't know what those things are, you can't communicate.
But instead of not learning, that's that teachable spirit, I think, is that you want to make the relationship as strong as it can and the work as strong as it can. So it's just better, instead of like, no, hey buddy, you're going to have to learn this, is that, hey, I'm going to try and you're going to try. But I'm going to start with me first, because that's all I can control. So I think that's a really strong. I think that was one of Kent's things that he really wanted to get across. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about that one, because we really didn't get through many questions.
I wanted to talk about the designers feeling inadequate, like they're not good. I wanted to talk about, the side project now, Creative by Design, and what that means for, how I'm passionate about that. But we can save that for another time.
Well, you can give us a little, if you've got a little bit of time, like 5-10 minutes, or we can just save it for another time. So, because you're always working on side projects now, but I think that one of the reasons that you are so successful is that there is that kind of innate feeling, and I think a lot of people feel this. And I think if you're not feeling this yet, you will, especially as you get older, if you stay in the field. A lot of times designers one of the things I wanted to know, and I didn't even write it down, was just how you've stayed kind of creative and how you've kept those juices flowing. Because I think a lot of times designers in their mid-30s will kind of peter out a little bit, right? 33, 34?
43.
40? I know, I'm 43 too. But I'm saying sometimes they'll, like in their 30s, they kind of like, this isn't working, I'm going to go do something else. And it's just because they hit creative block, or they're not pushing themselves. Right?
And you know why creative block happens? It's because yes, you want to bust it to get where you want to your dreams and stuff like that, but you have to have a break. I mean, God, the creator of the universe, took a break on the seventh day. If it's important enough for our God to take a break, we have to take a break. It's important, like during the day, to do design sprints, like what I try to do is 4 90-minute design sprints in a day. In between those, so I'll write down on my notepad what I'm going to fill those in for the day. And in between those times, I check my email, I have a meeting, or I go for a walk. I take a break. And then
how long are the breaks?
Like 15-minute break. Take a walk.
Okay.
Have a snack. I like to eat. I like hamburgers. Burgers are my currency. Ron Frazee, our project manager, knows that. He knows that he can get most anything out of me for a burger. So he has an IOU burger list for, I think it's at 3 or 4 right now. So anyway, skinny. I don't look like I eat that much, but I do. And that's Nick Sloggett. He's seen me eat. But so anyway, you have to take a break on the weekend. You need to take a day off. I mean, not every weekend, not every agency allows you to do that, but Engage is very much about work-life balance. So, I mean, we work, pretty much 40-hour week. So not always. I mean, sometimes there's something that has to be done, but it's important to take a break. And so anyway, somebody said they wanted to hear about feeling
design
inadequate.
sprints. Well,
design sprints.
Quick. Everyone wants to know about quickly explain design sprints.
Okay, so well, I call it a design sprint off the idea of you can only work for 90 minutes before. There's been studies, scientific studies show that you can only work for 90 minutes before your brain starts wandering, getting lost, losing focus. So, and if you can continue to bust through that and keep working and working, but your work might possibly not be as good as if you took a 15-minute break and came back to it and did. So that idea of working in a sprint, a 90-minute session, is what I call a 90-minute design sprint. So if you do four of those a day, you're getting 6 hours of solid work in, you're getting a couple of breaks, and you're having time for your meetings and your email and keeping up with projects, Basecamp. We use Basecamp and things like that. So,
do you set a timer?
I used to. I've kind of gotten used to it, but I thought about that yesterday about starting to set a timer again. I used to do it on my phone for 90 minutes and just let it ride. But so I know. But
so go on to the feelings of inadequacy.
Okay. Well, so we have a tendency as designers to look at other people's work, and all of a sudden that makes us look at ourselves and our own work and say, my work doesn't look like that. So what did I do wrong? Why am I not that good? Or, hey, maybe you are that good. Maybe you're just one thing is we're all self-critical of our own work. Our work could be just as good as others, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's just really good designers out there, and that's just the talent that they've been given. And when I've been to Creative South for 4 years. I went to Circles 1 year. I've been to some other conferences, and but 2 years ago at Creative South, there was a lot on hand lettering and everything, and there are some amazing hand letterers, and I watched that, and I after seeing speech after speech on hand lettering, I all of a sudden felt like, what is my career? I'm a web designer. What do I need to be a hand letterer? Do I need to pick this up? And yeah, I mean, if I really wanted to, yes. I mean, I may not be as good as some really good hand letters, but I could spend time like Bob did, and Bob became an amazing hand letterer, and he spent the time to do that, and you can do that. Mm-hmm. But I also we don't need to come out of those things feeling like somehow we're not. I mean, I'm a really good UI designer, and I said it. So there it is. So I'm good at it. And why, if that's the talent God's given me, and it is, and I love doing it, why do I need to go change my career to become a hand letterer if I'm a really good UI designer and I like doing it, and it's putting food on the table for my family. So, but even the reason I'm a good UI designer is because of the years of busting it. I wasn't a good UI designer when I began, when I did the Department of Education's website. But I mean, you just got to work at it, and you get better.
But it's just like Bob with the lettering.
Bob with the hand lettering. Yes, exactly. So don't feel inadequate about your work. Find out what you're good at. Focus on the strengths instead of trying to focus on your weaknesses and making your weaknesses better. Focus on your strengths, except for Jason needs to get over that procrastination thing.
But I also think it's what you tell yourself. So Nick said, and you probably will, like, he'll deny it off air, right? But so maybe that's part of that self-talk, because I really do think our self-talk holds us down a lot, and we have to. There's a writer, Brene Brown, and she's a psychologist, and she says, would you ever talk to somebody else, your best friend or your spouse, the way you're talking to yourself? And I wouldn't. So why would you talk to yourself like that? And so I think that that's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be married anymore.
Right. So, but that's not, I believe that's not what God says about you either. And you even preached on that, you know, God sees you in a different way. And so,
and that's the side project. That's the creative by design thing I'm passionate about right now. And that started 2 years ago. We've had 3 classes at the end of Creative South. And I taught. Mike Jones had me out 3 years, 3 years ago to Creative South. He said, I want to pay for your ticket, come out here. And he started the conference with a prayer. And growing up in church and working for Dave Ramsey at the time, I mean, I was used to praying. And then so I bowed my head, and then I looked around and thought, hey, wait a minute, I'm at a design conference. Is this cool? Are people okay with this? And most people were, or respectful at least of it. So after the conference, like, Mike, I can't believe you did that. He's like, that's who I am. That's what this is about. And that's who I'm giving this thing to. And I said, well, so I started thinking about that. And Mike and I started talking before the next Creative South. And I said, what if, people are traveling and they don't know where to go on Sunday morning to church? What if we just had a class for designers that are Christians to stick around? And that first year we had 11 people stick around for a Bible class. And we talked about how our creativity and this model, we started thinking about this model for creativity, how it should mimic how God created, which I'm going to be blogging more and more about that. And I've taught classes on that. So, but I mean, Emily Carlton was there, Peter Del Tondo, Eddie Labanowski, David Kovalov, and Mike and me and some others were there. And there was 11 of us. And the next year there was 28 of us. And then this year there was 76 of us. And now people are asking, hey, what does that look like if it's a conference, its own conference, a spinoff? So I don't know. That's something we're talking about doing, and we'll see. Thanks, Ben Stafford.
So, all right. So that's definitely something. So if somebody else wants to know more about the Creative by Design community, where could they go? Who can they tweet to? How can they read your blog? What can they do?
So it's creativebydesign.co.
Okay.
So, and the Twitter is CBD community.
Okay.
Let me write those in there.
All right. And then if you want to see Shane, if you want to see what he is doing, you can always check out his website, which is super easy because he has a easy name that I can say without having to practice. ShaneHelm.com, HelmShaneHelm.com. And then, and Nick did the CBD community. Thank you, on Twitter. And then you can also, he's Shane Helm everywhere. Even at home, except he's Poppy Helm, I guess.
Poppy at home.
Yeah, but he doesn't need a Twitter handle at home, hopefully. So Twitter, Shane Helm, and then I'm putting these in the thing, and also on Instagram, and then on Dribbble as well.
Yes.
So we'll have to do another one. We'll have to get into more of the Dribbble stuff. Those are some questions. How Dribbble. Yeah, how Dribbble kind of helped you.
I would not be where I am without Dribbble.
Yeah. And I think that for people who are trying to get to that next place, it's about putting time in and learning something. I definitely get that from you today. And then going and trying and going all out, even if it's a place that doesn't, like the Loveland thing didn't work out, but then you went at it and you busted it for the Park City. And I think that that's, sometimes opportunities come up. And just because an opportunity doesn't follow through, it doesn't mean that you should change your career or something, right? It's just that was not the right place at the right time. So
no, I'm not. But if I'm just going to be totally transparent with you, I mean, there's been times in my life where, man, should I change my career? Should I be an accountant?
Ooh, really? Accountant?
Well, I don't know. That's something. I know numbers, so I mean. I don't want to do concrete. I mean, I don't have any muscles, so.
But I think that would be such a waste. Like I have heard people.
Well, yeah, but what I'm just saying, we all go through that. I mean, we have to. I mean, yeah.
I guess I'm saying is have a group that you can talk to. I think having a couple guys that you have been able to connect with and be able to share, because clearly you probably aren't sharing this with like, hey, on your Snapchat, like I'm feeling inadequate. Maybe that might not be the best place, pardon?
No, we all curate our image online on who, we want people to think we are. And we're just a bunch of, people sitting about a computer trying to make a living and support our families. And I mean, that's real.
Yeah, it is. So, so let me tell you a little bit for everybody. Thank you, Shane. I'm going to give you kind of a little bit of wrap up. So again, Shane Helm on Instagram, Dribble, Twitter, and then shanehelm.com. And then if you're interested in the Creative by Design community, it's creativebydesign.co. And then that, I'm sure there's a little Twitter bird or whatever, and you can check that out as well. And it is a really cool community of people. So if you want to learn more about Design Recharge, we're here every Wednesday, except next Wednesday, because I'm doing a Saturday one. So let me tell you who I have on this Saturday. I have Scott Biersack, who is huge. I just am so inspired by him. And then Eric Friedrichsen, who is also really inspiring. And they're living together for this past year. Scott moved from Arizona, graduated from ASU, Arizona State, and then went to studying at the Cooper Union, And then Eric's lettering, they're like in the same community. Again, we're going to talk about these kind of communities of designers where you can really kind of open up and share and get real feedback and help you with your goals and people to hold your feet to the fire. So that'll be on Saturday. I haven't done a Saturday one, and I don't know how long. It's been a long time. And it'll be like 4 years in June that I've been doing Design Recharge. So thank you, Brian,
awesome.
Jan, for helping me with this. So anyway, so on Saturday, check it out at 3 p.m. Eastern, and you can do the math. I think that's 12 p.m. Pacific time. I'll put it up. So you're going to get another newsletter from me this week. I guess I'm going to get a lot of unsubscribes, but more questions. And it's about how they work together, how they live together, and then just kind of somehow working closely or being in a community with some other designers has really affected them, a small, close community. And hopefully there won't be any more aliens. And Shane, I'm just impressed with the Wi-Fi out there, or your modem. You had to probably use a modem today, didn't you?
Oh man, the modem days.
Yeah. So next week I'm not doing one because I'm doing one on Saturday. But Shane, just thank you so much for coming and sharing. And we do have to have you back on because we didn't get to much at all of our questions.
Are you serious? Because my first question lasted about 30 minutes.
Well, we kind of needed that, but it was really good. Like I thought that was really good. And it was encouraging to me anyway. So, and Peter is with me on doing another part 2. So next, catch us on Saturday. Sorry, and thank you for hanging out a little bit late for us today. And we'll do another part 2. Thank you guys for coming and listening to Shane and just being encouraging because he does really rock it, I think. And I'm just thankful that you guys are all my friends. Yeah, somebody said earlier, like when you said your dad was a nuclear person,
he was a nuclear reactor engineer.
Yeah, but they said that's why all of Shane's designs are so nuclear or something. It was a cheesy joke, but I was like, that's such a good one.
That's what I'm going to put on my resume. Nuclear website.
Yeah. All my designs go nuclear. That was a great one. But thank you guys for being so great in. So Mike says, wouldn't that make his dad Homer Simpson? I can't imagine your dad looking like Homer. To be honest, is your dad skinny too?
No, my dad's stocky, and he'll be 70 in August. And my dad was valedictorian in high school and most handsome in school. So I grew up with all my girlfriends having a crush on my dad. And anytime my dad comes to town and comes to church, the lady that works at the little merchandising store 2 miles from here, every time I go in, she's like, I saw your dad at church. He is so handsome. He is so good looking.
That's hilarious.
He's built and he's in good health for his age, and the ladies still like him.
Hey,
but he's a good man. He's a good man, and anyway.
All right. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Diane. Appreciate you, Diane.
So
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, of
Thanks,
course.
Mike.
So if you guys want to know more about me, I forgot to tell you that, designrecharge.org or rechargingyou.com. You can always email me at Diane at either one of those, designrecharge.org or rechargingyou.com. Thanks, and we'll see you on Saturday.
Sounds good. Thank you, Diane.
Bye.
See you, everyone. Thanks, everyone.